So like Dr. Ragland said, my name is Gabby. I'm going to be your MC for tonight. I'm really excited to be here, excited to see all your faces. We're going to just start off with a welcome from the co-directors of the Truth Telling Project, Pastor Corey Bush, Dr. Imani Scott, and Dr. David Ragland. They're going to come in and welcome you all.
Good evening, everyone. So glad you came out. You're with us on tonight. We are very excited about what's about to take place in this room. I'm not moved by how many people showed up. I know tomorrow it'll probably be triple this amount because of who's coming up, but that's okay. The point of this whole thing is to get the truth out, because the media has taken us and wrapped us up and tossed us to the side and pulled us back and mixed us up again and threw us, but this time we have the opportunity to get our voices heard, to let the truth be told and let the truth stand, and the truth not mixed up and confused with what that person's perception was, but just what someone else's perception was, just us. So thank you for being here, being a witness to what's going on. Thank you for your support. Thank you for your kindness. Thank you for sticking and staying with us in this movement. We appreciate each and every one of you. And also, I just want to add, when the people are getting up, giving their testimonies, just, let us remember that everybody that gets up, it's hard to get up and to tell your story sometimes, especially once you're removed from it, to pull that thing back up. So let's please give everybody the attention. And also, I want to do one thing before I pass it to Dr. Ragland and Dr. Imani. I would like to acknowledge, I don't know if she wants me to, but I'm going to acknowledge her anyway. We have Sandra Bland's sister in the room, and I just want everybody to just turn around and give her a warm hello. She's sitting back there. She looks so lovely. She's sitting back there next to Pastor Hannah. So we welcome her as well. So make sure you just give her a warm love. We don't know what's really going on in her life, so we want to make sure we're a blessing. Thank you for being here.
So I'm hoping, is this on? Yeah, okay, cool. So I have a few prepared remarks because I've been up since about 4 this morning, and I just want to make sure I stay on point. I want to say, to begin with, that this is a very special moment, and a lot of work from a lot of people has gone into pulling this event together. And it's not just for those of us assembled here this evening, because there are communities across the country that are involved in observing what's going on here this evening. And it's really important that we honor everyone, all of the Truth Telling Project team. I'm so proud of you. I love you, your hard work, the witnesses for the truth tellers that are here, the pastor of this wonderful church, and all of those who have come to support us this evening. I want to thank you for being here. So, what is the truth, and why does it matter? The truth might be considered a summation of what is real and what is factual and what is certain. And it matters because it legitimizes our experiences. It authenticates our understanding, and it verifies what is honest, what is reliable, and what is valid to us. In many societies, police violence is a state-sanctioned occurrence associated with often unspoken historical, institutional, and cultural arrangements. For this reason, one of the most frequently reported types of human rights violations occurring throughout the world has involved the protracted abuse of citizens at the hands of police officers. Historically, the United States, too, has a centuries-long record involving state-sanctioned police brutality against blacks. The fact that there is no official record of the number of violent and deadly interactions with persons of color in this country between persons of color and state-sanctioned police officers, it's no mistake. For many Americans, this absence of data legitimizes the oppression that this country is too shameful to document, and that this country hides day after day, year after year, decade after decade, century after century. So tonight we have assembled so that a portion of this truth can be told. And we welcome you and we thank you for joining us in this moment.
Like my colleagues, I want to thank you all for being here. Thank you all for your hard work. My students are here, good friends, people from the community, people that I've protested with. And I just have a few words, some things that I thought about when I thought about this event. And I was thinking about that we're doing this with the spirit of our ancestors and the recently fallen. They evoke in us a will, a need necessary to speak our truth. To tell our stories, to tell stories that give us a sense of a lived experience absent of justice. These spirits, they call us not just to reform, but they call us to the table. They call us to the table of justice that transforms and must transform us beyond what is present. And I would say this calling to the table should call us to a kind of justice that's restorative, not punitive, carried out by communities, not occupiers. A kind of justice where the respect of human dignity is an urgent concern for all of us. These voices, this experience, calls us to speak truth into the world that justice must be present in the lives of Black folk. Justice comprised of opportunities and rights that allow us all to freely choose our own life paths. Black Lives Matter must speak to us all. The politics of blindness and silence often deny this. We are called to speak truth for the least of us, for the whole of our society. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to hear from our first truth teller, Kristine Hendrix. Kristine Hendrix. Dr. LaFayette, will you welcome her and invite her to tell her truth?
Please tell us your name and your location.
My name is Kristine Hendrix, and I am from University City.
Thank you for coming tonight and volunteering to be a truth teller for the Ferguson Truth Initiative. We are inviting you to share your story within the 30-minute time frame allotted for each truth teller. Kristine Hendrix, please tell us your story of direct and indirect experiences with police violence.
Okay, thank you, and thank you to our audience. I believe we have a very, very short video that's going to encapsulate what happened to me, and then I will tell you more about how this event came to happen.
Let him go. Hey, you walking this way. Get back. Hey, turn back. Oh, good turn. Oh my God! Stop! No! Stop! Oh my God! Oh my God! Oh my God! Oh my God! Why did you do that? I didn't do anything. Put your hands behind your back. My hand is hurt. My hand is hurt. I can't, it hurts. I can't, it hurts. I can't, it hurts. It hurts so bad, please. Please stop. Please stop. Please stop it. You're hurting me. Put your hand on me. You're hurting me so bad. Oh my God. Why are you taking me? I'm on the ground.
There are more people in prisons and jails today than there were enslaved in this country.
So some days it's harder to watch that than others. But on May 29th, it was a Friday, a group of maybe 30 protesters decided to go to Busch Stadium to do an action. It was a mostly silent action. It was a very peaceful action, other than a few Cardinal fans who decided to throw a cup of ice that actually hit one of our comrades' children. He has 2 children, I think they're like 6 and 7, very close in age to my children because I'm a mother of 3 boys myself. And so it was very peaceful. We did a little chalking in the street. We stood on the corner. There was some chanting. The game wrapped up, and we, stood on the corners. I passed out literature to people. I told them Jesus loved them. I told them to have an amazing evening. And then we all marched back to Keener Plaza where we had met earlier in the day. Approximately 13 of us decided, it was right around 10:30. It was a Friday night. Washington Avenue was going to have a lot of people there, so we decided to disrupt Washington Avenue while people were partying after the Cardinals game. Again, we were very peaceful. We engaged people on the sidewalks. From time to time, we would say Black Lives Matter. From time to time, we would have engaging discussions with people about why we're out here protesting and why it is that we're spending our Friday night educating people on police brutality. As we were making our way back, some of us took to the streets, again saying Black Lives Matter to a mostly receptive crowd. We wrapped up on Washington and 11th Street, and we were trying to decide who was going to take who home. We knew that our action was over. A police officer rode up on a bicycle. He got off. He didn't say anything. He grabbed one of our comrades, Daruba Shakur, and began to arrest him. So we stood around and we asked him why he was arresting Daruba. We let the officer know that we were leaving and that our action was over. He called for backup, and other police officers began coming to the scene. One of them was a white shirt. I think it was Lieutenant Dan. Don't quote me on that, but he approached me. He touched my arm. I put my hands up. I let him know I wasn't a threat. He backed away from me, he walked away, and he proceeded to arrest Mike Lotak, and that's when you actually see the video began. As he was arresting Mike Lotak, Mike actually handed me his phone. I got the phone, I backed away slowly so that I could record his arrest. Once we knew that we could not help our fellow protesters, myself, the young lady Lachelle, and then EJ began walking away. One of the other protesters was running and the police were trying to chase him, so you hear me call out to tell them that he wasn't a threat, we weren't doing anything, to let him go. At that moment, you see the police officer jump out, he tases EJ. I've never seen anybody tase before. It was scary just watching that happen to somebody, and so I start to shout out as a police officer rushes me. As he's rushing me, another police officer comes from my left and he tased me. One of the prongs went into my right hand just below my thumb. The other one caught on my sweater in my right breast area. As I was falling to the ground, you see the screen go black. Because I was actually laying on top of the phone. That's why you can only hear my voice. I'm actually laying on the ground. He actually put the cuffs on me, and he tased me at least 2 more times. As he was tasing me, we were making eye contact. So when you hear me talking, I'm actually speaking to him and telling him that he's hurting me. The other officers are telling me to quit resisting arrest, but I'm basically already under arrest because they have my left arm behind my back in the cuff. So they're trying to tell me to put my right arm behind my back because they know I have the phone. They probably know that I'm recording the interaction. If you know anything about being tased, it's an electric shock. It's kind of like having a seizure, and therefore I didn't have very much voluntary movement in my arm, and just the act of him trying to force my arm behind my back was painful enough, which is why I'm crying out. And I'm literally asking him, begging him to stop, because I'm already in a submissive position. But he willfully violated numerous clauses that they have in their tasing policy. I wasn't an active threat. I didn't have a weapon. I was already under arrest. I was in a submissive position. And yet he willfully did that because he was targeting me. They see me out there a lot. I've been to many protests, so it wasn't a coincidence or accident that he chose me and he chose to enact the kind of violence that he did against me. It's just kind of weird because that exact same day, I believe it was on the East Coast, a 50-year-old man was killed by police because he was tased. And so I feel blessed in a sense that I was able to survive with just having to live and deal with the trauma of having that experience. The trauma didn't really end with being tased because, of course, they have to take you to jail. You're arrested. I had a prong in my left thumb, as I said. They actually pulled the prong out on the street while I was in handcuffs with my arms behind my back. I wouldn't walk. I couldn't walk. I was traumatized. I was just overwhelmed. So they actually lifted me up. They didn't take any care of how I may have felt. They lifted me up as I screamed in pain and stuffed me in the back of the paddy wagon and took me down to be processed. While we were being waited to be processed, I was the second person off of the paddy wagon. I was the last person to receive medical treatment while we were locked up. And by medical treatment, I mean he gave me a Band-Aid and some first aid cream and some ibuprofen and told me I could do it myself. That was the medic. And while we were waiting to be seen by the medic, officers came in and harassed us. We had bandanas on that night. One of them took one of my bandanas and was like, "Yeah, you're so loud when you're out in the street. What do you have to say now? You know, what do you have to say now?" So they were basically continuing the harassment while we were in a position, in a submissive place. The overall experience was just a shock and trauma that someone who was walking down the sidewalk could be brutalized in such a way by not just a police officer, but a black police officer. His name is Stephen Ogunjobi. He was said to have graduated first in his class in 2012 from the police academy, so it just racked my brain that he doesn't know what his own taser policy is.
Were there other persons in your community affected by the incident? If yes, please explain.
Yes. I feel that the whole protest family was impacted by it. When I woke up it happened on a Friday. When I woke up one Sunday morning, that video hit Facebook. And all of us are friends on Facebook, so all of us had probably the first thing Sunday morning. That was probably the first thing that we saw. I saw it myself 5 times. I know many of my protest family said that they saw it many times. I know family that said that they only heard about it and couldn't watch it because just knowing that happened to me and how they feel about me was traumatizing. So it was traumatizing for the individuals that were out there with me that had to experience that had to witness that with me. It's traumatizing for my other comrade who was tased multiple times by the police. It was traumatizing for the immediate community which I live. I'm on the school board. I'm on the board of directors for University City. I'm also a mentor and life coach for Real Talk Incorporated. And one day when I was coming home with my boys from work, there were some young ladies that were riding their bikes in the neighborhood, and they literally followed my car home, or me home, on their bikes. And when I got out, I hadn't told my boys yet what happened to me. It was still fresh. That was maybe Monday or Tuesday. And so I gave my boys the keys to the house. I told them to go inside and I'd be in a moment. And the girls stood at the end of my driveway and they just looked at me. And they were, really upset. And I said, "Are you concerned about me?" And they said, "Yeah." And I said, "Do you need a hug?" And they were like, "Yeah." And so they began asking me questions because they're probably 9, 10, 11, about the same age as my children. Children have access to YouTube. This video was on YouTube. And so they had seen the video and they were worried about me. And so at that moment, I also knew that I was gonna have to tell my boys because they didn't know. And I didn't want them to either hear it from their friends or to go on YouTube and hear and actually witness it. So I did let them know what happened and that I was okay, that I would be okay and that I would survive. But I could tell that, they were very upset about it. And when we were lucky enough to be graced with Dr. Angela Davis here, I took my oldest son to that truth telling. And when I spoke about what happened to me, I let the audience know that there was a YouTube video, and he went out and he looked it up and he saw it. And to this day, my children have been with me protesting, and they've already been fearful and distrustful of the police, and that only reinforced the energy that they had towards them because, again, of course, I'm their mother. Can you imagine how a boy feels about his mother and then to have to experience that? And so they experienced, as many other people have said, a certain amount of secondary trauma from having to bear witness to that as well.
What changes do you recommend for your community to improve the relationship between citizens and police?
Well, as I have said many a time, as we have said many a time, the whole damn system is guilty as hell. And there's not one thing that you can do. I liken this to a dilapidated, condemned house whose very foundation is broken. The foundation to this house is in shambles, and we're trying to go in and remodel. We want to put in a new stove here and a new refrigerator there and some new carpeting and maybe some tile, and that's not going to do shit. I'm sorry, excuse me, but it's not going to do anything when we need to tear it down and rebuild, because the very fabric of the house was built on structural racism and on the policing of Black people as commodities and properties. And so therefore, until this country actually comes to realize that we are not property, that we are full humans with autonomy, our own rights, and we deserve the respect that we as the original people deserve, then, there will be no reconciliation with the police. We as a community don't owe them anything. They owe us, because as tax-paying citizens, as people who pay their salary, who empower our government that has been given the authority by the Creator to do as we please, they need to come to terms with the fact that they are here to protect and serve us. And so anything that's going to happen is going to have to start with them, and it's going to have to be a complete and total shift and change in how we view what that entity does in our communities. Otherwise, there will be no peace, there will be no reconciliation, there will be no community involvement with them, because the whole system on which they're built is built to scare, to terrorize, and to humiliate the people who look like me, who look like many of the people in this room. And so I can't come up with a solution that will probably satisfy this kind of forum. You know, I want to tear it down and start over.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for listening.
Please tell us your name and your location.
I grew up in the Ville area, which is North St. Louis, but now I live in South City, St. Louis.
Thank you for coming today and volunteering to be a truth teller for Ferguson Truth Initiative. We are inviting you to share your story with 30 minutes time frame allowed for each truth teller. Ms. Taylor, please tell us your story of direct or indirect experience with police violence, please.
Okay. My son, Kerry Ball Jr., was my firstborn, and he was shot a total of 21 times by 2 St. Louis City police officers, Jason Chambers and Timothy Boyce. And less than 30 days later, we was making this video with St. Louis American, and you can watch it right here for yourselves. We was just standing here, and 2 police officers just rolled past, cut their sirens on us, waved down the window and sarcastically said, "Hi, Mom," and laughed. I'm very confused by that. I'm already confused at a lot of things, but they're adding to the confusion.
On April 24th, Kerry Ball Jr. was driving home from a catering job in downtown St. Louis when police attempted to pull him over. Kerry had been convicted of a felony when he was 17 and was carrying an illegal semi-automatic handgun in the car for protection. Knowing he would most likely gone back to prison if the police found the gun, Kerry decided to lead the police on a high-speed chase through downtown. He crashed his car in the 1000 block of North 9th Street, grabbed the gun, and started running east on Carr Street.
This is where they said he came from around the corner, and he ran down here. They said he stumbled about halfway where those gates are, kept running, and once he kept running, they were close, and they were yelling to him, telling him to stop, to get off of his waist, this was allegedly, and he ran to the spot here and stopped, turned around, threw the gun over to his left side, raised his hands in the air, and that's when he was shot. It's exactly the spot in which Kerry was shot a total of 25 times. Marks in which the bullets either hit the ground or entered Kerry's body and came out. Yeah. And as you can see, none of these are at an angle. They're all straight.
Kerry did have a gun with him that night. There's no argument to that. But he threw it, witnesses say. And the police chief, Dotson, even said they have 6 witnesses that coincide to say that Kerry threw the gun and his hands was in the air. So that was a surrendered man to me. And 25 shots is very excessive.
The police chief made me feel really comfortable with us. He gave me a lot of faith that he's going to do the right thing. He seems like a pretty fair person. To the best of my recollection, he told us that there aren't any witnesses that story coincides with what the officer said, that he pointed the gun and then they fired. They have no witnesses saying that. The witnesses was here on the corner of 8th Street in a car, and other witnesses were standing just across the street. There were kids as young as 2 years old outside that saw it. There's kids that's 5 and 6 years old that now every time they see the police, they urinate on themselves. This has traumatized everybody, not just the family, but the whole entire community. Kerry has always been an honor roll student his whole life. These are certificates from Kerry's elementary school all the way up till high school and in college. Here is his Emerging Scholars Award that he just received the day of his funeral, which was May 1st. And it's for having a 3.5 or better over completing over 12 development education credits. And this was given to him. He was supposed to be in the ceremony that evening, May 1st, 2013, but instead he was getting buried.
So that's part of my police harassment right there and involvement with the police. At first, when we only had a medical report paper from Kerry, we hadn't had the autopsy yet. So the medical report did say that it was a total of 25 wounds in Kerry's body. Some of those was accident injuries, but it was a total of 21 gunshots to Kerry's body. Like they said on that night, Kerry was coming home from work. He was actually finna drop a coworker off down at O'Fallon Place, and they stopped at the 7-Eleven down on 18th and Pine in the downtown area. Right there, one set of police officers decided to follow Kerry for tinted windows. Well, in St. Louis, that's a no chase policy. You're not supposed to stop anybody for tinted windows. And Kerry's car was registered, and the tint was of legal tint limit. Well, they followed Kerry down into that area that you're seeing, and he did crash his car on 9th Street. He did injure himself in that accident, so he wasn't running fast. Yes, Kerry did have a gun, and I think that's why we didn't get a lot of support as a family like we should have, because a lot of people got the wrong conclusion of Kerry and him having this gun. No witnesses said that Kerry pointed a gun at no police officers. After we did get the autopsy report and seeing those crater holes in the ground, they do match up with the way Kerry was shot in his body. Kerry's hands was in the surrendering position. On his left side of his body, he was shot in his wrist, his elbow. In the right side of his arms, he was shot a total of 7 times down. Up under here, 3 complete holes in his chest that had black circle margin rings around it, where witnesses said that they actually walked up on Kerry, said something smart to him, and shot him 3 times. Kerry was only standing 3 of those shots. The other 18 was on the ground. We went down there one day as a family, and we dropped quarters in those holes, and those holes are bigger than a quarter. After Kerry was shot, it happened on a Wednesday night. My son Carlos discovered it from his sister seeing it on the news. All they said on the news was, police involved shooting, 25-year-old male, and they showed Kerry's car. Now, by the way, Kerry's car was registered. He had license plates, everything. Well, that Wednesday night, it happened about like 9:30. He was pronounced dead at 10 by the chaplain. When Carlos called me that morning, he called me about like 6:30 that morning on a Thursday. He said, Ma, I said, yeah. He said, is Kerry at home? I said, no. As a matter of fact, he's not. I said, and Carlos, I didn't sleep real good. I kept looking for him last night. So Carlos was like, Ma, I'm not trying to scare you, but turn on the news. So I turned on the news. When I turned on the news, I seen exactly what Carlos seen. 25-year-old male, police-involved shooting, and I seen his car, but we seen this guy laying on the ground in handcuffs. He didn't look familiar to us. So I called Kerry's girlfriend, and I said, Jada, is Kerry with you? She was like, no, Miss Toni, and something don't feel like right. We were supposed to have a date last night. And I was like, I thought I seen you sitting out there in my driveway. And she was like, yeah, I waited there till like 1 in the morning. I didn't want to disturb you. I was like, can you do me a favor? Can you go over his friend's house, one of his friends? I was like, that's the only person he would really be with. Kerry was kind of a loner. I miss him so much. Once she went to his friend's house, Kerry wasn't there. We knew something was wrong. So by this time, it's like 7:30 so. So I called the police station myself as a woman and as a mother because I wanted to know what they had did to my child, and I knew that was my child car. I wasn't crazy. So I called, Detective Bremen answered the phone. He said, ma'am, I just got to work. I don't have the reports from last night. Can you give me 10 minutes? I can call you right back. Well, he did. He called me back in less than 10 minutes. He did. So when he told me, he was like, ma'am, I still don't have no reports from last night. I said, well, me and my family is on our way down there. He said, well, if you're really on your way, call us first so you can give us preparations. What would he tell me that for if they didn't know that that was my child? They knew that was Kerry in that morgue. What they was finna do is they was finna hide Kerry from us. They didn't think nobody was gonna come looking for him because they never wanted nobody to know how many times they had shot Kerry for no reason. Because from the time to me, the police officers was wrong because they racial profiled Kerry, and I believe when they ran Kerry license plate, they seen that he had been an ex-offender, and they thought he still was doing something he didn't have no business doing. That was not the case. Kerry was a grown man this time. He had a full-time job and was a full-time college student. Kerry had a productive future. Anybody that has a productive future is not going to point a gun at a police officer. I'm sorry. And you cannot get shot in those positions that Kerry got shot in if I'm pointing at you. That's point blank and simple. So us, as a family, we get down there to the police station. It's about like 8 now, 8:15. Detective Bremen come down, but he got so much remorse on his face, like you could tell he really wanted to say, ma'am, I don't even know what to tell you. They done shot your child up. He was just looking at us like, he was just froze himself. So he say, guys, it's so early in the morning. Have y'all ate breakfast? Have y'all had coffee? I need 2 hours, 2 hours. He said, I need to do distinctive marks. So I looked at Carlos, and I'm like, Carlos, what is that? He was like, he talking about Kerry tattoos, Ma. I'm like, oh, Lord have mercy. So I'm like, okay. We all leave. We go to the Hardee's in the downtown area. More families showing up, more families. So these 2 hours get by. It's 10 o'clock now. We go back. Nobody came downstairs to us. Nobody came to talk to us. Nobody called. So I got a text message on my phone from a friend. He said, call the morgue. The morgue has no choice but to tell you who they have in their morgue. I calls the morgue. The morgue tells me I can't come view Kerry's body. They say, ma'am, what I could do is I can give you a tentative report. They called off Kerry's name, his social security number, and his date of birth. And then they asked me, did I have a funeral home? Well, right there I fainted. Because no, I didn't have a funeral home. I just found out this is my child. And what do you mean I can't see him? So that wasn't enough for his girlfriend. She ran out of that building and ran into the morgue. And this is what lets me know that God didn't have a part in this. When his girlfriend ran into that morgue, my mother's nickname was Baby Sister. So Kerry had that tattoo on him. The person in the morgue couldn't pronounce it, but that's the first thing she said to his girlfriend when he walked in there. When she walked in there, she said, "You here for Kerry Ball? He got a Bossa tattoo, trying to say Basa." They hid Kerry from me from the beginning to the end. Now, after reading all of Kerry's paperwork, I did see that they found me. They knew I was his mother. They found me from when Kerry was a victim of a drive-by shooting in 2008. He was at Bowen's Hospital. Kerry was also, the morgue was also informed by Detective Murphy to put Kerry in the viewing window at 1 a.m. So if he was told to be put in the viewing window at 1 a.m., why wasn't I allowed to see him at 10 p.m.? Well, at 10 a.m., because these still all the morning hours, because they was finna hide my child. That's what they was finna do. They never wanted the city of St. Louis or the county or other states to know they put that many bullets in somebody's body. They didn't want nobody to know that. So it wasn't never nothing bad put out there on Kerry. Only thing that was put out there was police-involved shooting, victim had a gun, or victim pointed gun at police. It wasn't no dirt they can dig up on Kerry, because Kerry got in trouble one time when he was 17 and we lived in Florida, and I'm not bragging. That's just to say that he was on a road, on a path to doing something greater than wanting to be shot and killed in the streets like a dog. I'm not bragging about him. I'm just saying he had a brighter future. So I feel like they racial profile Kerry. They traumatized their community because, as you heard in the video itself, 6-year-olds down there at that time is urinating on themselves every time they see the police. Now, how do we prepare that? She's 6. Where do we start at with her to get her to 25 to not be shot in the street? So yes, I do believe something different needs to be done. I do not like what has happened to so many people and their loved ones. When they kill our loved ones, this infects the entire family. And then they turn around, and when we stand up for our rights, they beat us. When I went to the internal affairs and tried to make that report against those police officers, they did not want my reports. But when I had that meeting at the NAACP with the chief of police, and he told me that my child got stopped for tinted windows, oh, now the internal affairs want to call me, run me down. They even offered to come to my house. Now, the police chief did involve the FBI. He sent Kerry's case to the FBI. You know why? Because there was no gunpowder residue on Kerry's body or clothing. That's because Kerry didn't point a gun at nobody. Kerry did not fire a gun at nobody. He laid that gun on the ground like those witnesses said, and he put his hands in the air like those witnesses said. And he didn't break a law when he went away from them in that car either, because that's the no chase policy. They broke the law because they should have never followed Kerry. I'm very devastated by this. I'm still very devastated because it's steady continuing. And the more I travel, I'm steady meeting more and more families with these horrific stories. I did not know that in California, police officers could shoot victims with AR-15s, blowing people body parts off their body. No, this is terrible. I didn't even see my child again until the casket opened the day of his funeral. Me and his father say we buried somebody that we didn't even know. We paid for a funeral that we didn't even know who we was burying. They autopsied him at that morgue. By the time the funeral home got him, he was a close friend to the family. He said, I'm not going to devastate y'all like that. He even picked a picture he wanted to go on Kerry's obituary. He said, ma'am, your son didn't age. He went back. He said, so can I pick this picture to put on his obituary? Because this is what he looks like right now. I'm done.
I have some questions I want to ask you. That's so sad. Miss Taylor, did you get justice for your son?
No.
I gotta to say this one thing. We've met a lot of you mothers in the movement. We have compassion for y'all and we love you guys.
Thank you. I love you guys too.
I just want to tell you that I love you.
I love you too.
And thank you for coming out.
Thank you for having me.
Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Toni Taylor. Now we're going to hear from Sandra Bland's sister, Shante Needham.
Good evening. Will you please tell us your name and your location?
My name is Shante Needham, and I'm from Montgomery, Illinois.
Thank you for coming, and thank you for volunteering to be a truth teller for the Ferguson Truth Initiative. We're inviting you to share your story.
First, I want to extend my condolences to everyone who's lost someone, from my family to you guys. Each time I have to come into a setting of this nature, it sickens my stomach that we even have to convene in this manner. Some cases we hear about and some we don't. And I'm sorry that you guys have to go through this. I'm sorry that we have to go through this. I can't really speak on the case itself because we're still going through. However, Reverend Bonner, she'll speak to that for me. And then I'll let you guys know who Sandra really was, not who the media would like to portray her as.
So there's still a civil trial going on, and so Shante asked me to share from my perspective what's happened.
Will you share with us what you have been doing and your participation with the Bland
I'll just
family?
speak for myself. I'm not speaking for Shante. So on the Tuesday, July 14th, the Prairie View alumni were really very active on social media and began to ask the question, what happened to Sandra Bland? I'm very close to a lot of Prairie View alumni, and so a lot of people who knew Sandra and who believed that something had gone wrong. We very quickly began to hear that Sandra Bland had been arrested right outside the gates of Prairie View. In the video that you see, the camera's pointed away from the gates of Prairie View. But if you're where she was standing, you would see the gates of Prairie View University just 2 blocks away. And you would see that she was right in front of Hope African Methodist Episcopal Church. She was arrested right outside their parking lot in the grass. Sandra spent the weekend in the jail. It was significant that she was arrested at 4:30 on a Friday afternoon. I spent the next 80 days in front of the Waller County Jail, and one thing that I learned during that process was that much like a hospital, the jail kind of shifts their attention on the weekends from care and release of patients as the hospital does to visitation, and at the jail they do the same. So the time that she was arrested seems significant to me, that she was arrested at 4:30 on a Friday afternoon when the jail would be shifting its focus from the regular work of the week to focusing on visitation rather than releasing folks. It's a small rural jail. So as the uproar among Prairie View alumni in Houston began to rise, by Wednesday there was articles coming out that said that the family and the friends of Sandra Bland did not believe the official report that the police were putting out, which was that Sandra had committed suicide. On that day, when I read the article that Sandra's family did not believe that she'd committed suicide, I spent hours in silence, and I had a friend sitting with me at the time, and I said, finally to my friend, I said, I'm about to do something. Something's going to change. And we went from there to Bible study, and after Bible study, we decided to go to the Waller County Jail at 10 o'clock at night. It's in a rural location, and we wrote the question that Sandra's family and friends were asking, what happened to Sandra Bland, on a candle, and we lit it, and we put it there, and a guard came and blew it out. So we lit it again, and we kept coming back every day for 80 days. We learned a lot about the situation that Sandra Bland must have found herself in, because she's not here to tell us. And nobody from inside of the jail has been willing to speak and to tell us what she went through when she was inside of there. On the 20th day of being at the jail, the sheriff came out of the jail and told me to go back to the Church of Satan. I'm United Methodist clergy, and that was the beginning of really some intense intimidation from them that continued to reveal their practices in that county. So, what we know, there's a reason why we keep asking what happened to Sandra Bland, because there's a lot we don't know, and she can't tell us. But what we know is that on July 10th, Sandra Bland was driving off of the campus of Prairie View after just receiving a job there. We know that she was, a police officer began to tail her while she was still on campus, that he followed her to see if she would do anything illegal. I can speak for myself and not for anybody else in saying that I was at the initial opening statements for the civil trial, and that the attorney for the officer said that Officer Brian Encinia had seen Sandra. He thought he might have seen her run a stop sign, but he wasn't sure. And he wasn't sure if it was actually a stop sign or another sign. So he decided to follow her to see if she would do anything else. That's what the attorney said in Houston, Texas, at the federal courthouse. So he followed her off campus, and as you can see if you've seen the dash cam, he began to accelerate towards her as they came out of the gates of Prairie View. And so the gates of Prairie View has one lane, and the road, which is now Sandra Bland Parkway, although they have not put up the signs, it turns into two lanes as you leave. And so as he accelerated, and as she was coming into Sandra Bland Parkway, she, of course, as many of us do when somebody accelerates behind us, she got over to the right. When she did that, he pulled her over. So we already know that he was tailing her, as his attorney said himself, to see if she would do anything illegal. And then he accelerated fast behind her to, as it would seem to me, push her to do something that he could pull her over for. And so she came to the right lane, and he pulled her over right in front of Hope African Methodist Episcopal Church, which is the denomination that she is a member of. And as you've seen, if you've seen the video, we're not going to show it right now out of consideration for her sister. But if you've seen the video, first he's just giving her a warning, but then he seems to kind of taunt her and say, you know, then he opens her car door and tries to, you know, pull her out of her car, and then he pulls a taser on her and orders her out of her car. And consistently throughout the whole video, she's saying, what am I being? Why, you know, why are you doing this? And the officer never gives her an answer. And so he leads her out of the line of his camera so that nobody can see what he's doing. And then we have cell phone footage of her on the ground in pain with his knee in her back. There's another police car that pulls up, driven by Officer Penny Good. They claim that they don't have a dash cam from that. That's their claim. Her dash cam would probably have caught what really happened. Officer Insenia claims that Sandra kicked him after he had intentionally led her with his taser out of the line of his camera. They then arrested her and, as I said before, booked her into the Waller County Jail, which is in a rural county in Texas, about an hour west of Houston, 2 hours east of Austin, and the last county in the United States where the slaveholding plantations were closed. Slaveholding plantations weren't closed in Waller County until 2 months after Juneteenth. So it's the last place in the United States. That's it.
So who my sister was, she was a beloved daughter to my mother for 28 years. She was a funny sister to 4 of us. She had 9 nieces and nephews whom she loved. She was very bold. She was very unapologetic about how she felt. She would tell you exactly how she felt, whether you liked it or not, and tell you it out of love. She was smart, dependable. She had a heart of gold. She would help you with anything if she could. She loved the kids, not just her nieces and nephews, but all the kids. She was excited about going back to Texas to start this new job. Her and my mother had took a trip to see our family the week prior, and they returned on that Monday, which was the 6th, I believe. The next day, she got on the road and drove by herself to Texas. She wanted this job so bad that she left driving by herself. And we still devastated, we upset, we hurting, because it is now day 124 and we still don't know what happened to my sister. So that is why we're still asking people to say her name, keep asking what happened to Sandra Bland, and just ask that justice be served for my sister, and that those responsible are held accountable for their actions. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing with us.
I remember when I
All right.
I think I speak for a lot of people when I say that, as far as those of us in the fight, we draw a lot of strength from these families because you have to keep in mind that while they're going through the legal process and whatnot, they're grieving. And I don't think there's a time frame where you stop grieving the loss of your child. So when you see people like Sarita and Von Derritt out here standing with us, it does something to you and it gives you hope because they haven't given up. And if they haven't given up with all the pain and the various no's they're being told when they're asking for answers, there is no reason for us to stop. Because at the end of the day, we go home to our children. They don't. So I respect you and your wife so very much, and the fact that you guys still support us, because that's important too. So just thank you, and we stand with you. And with that being said, the next person coming up, I'll probably respect this man more than anybody I've ever met in my life. I don't know how he does it, keeps it together. He's a good person, you know what I'm saying? So this is probably, I'm not saying that any story is more important than the other one, but when we're talking about what sparked this movement and why we really fight and what lit that fire and why St. Louis and Ferguson is ground zero for the fight, this is who you think about. So next up is Michael Brown Sr.
We meet again. Please state your name and location.
Michael Brown Sr., St. Louis, Missouri.
Okay. Brother Michael, tell us your story of what you and your family have experienced in police brutality and police violence.
Well, the story is growing up myself, I had to deal with those issues, It's sad when you have to tell your son or your loved one how they have to interact with police officers. Just to warn them to obey. But I wouldn't say obey, just to follow directions. I had a lot of interactions, but my son had more, because of his size, his weight, from behind, he looks like a grown man. He had a lot of issues with them, talking to him and he not knowing what to do and knowing procedure of, if you come in contact with a police officer, don't forget, son, make sure you call me or your mother. When you at an age of 10, Mike was always tall. He always had some weight on him. So just coming up and being a big guy, that can always be a problem. I feel like it shouldn't even matter if a black person, size, skinny, small, or whatever, they shouldn't be harassed at all. It's just sickening. It's tired. I'm sick and tired of all of it. I speak for all families. You know, it's families that we don't even know nothing about, you know, that they go, there's probably someone going through that right now as I'm standing here speaking. But yeah, I feel like the police, is a lot of them, they are rude. They have no respect for us, and we're ready to stand up and not stop. So the fight is the fight. However they want to call it, verbally, standing in front of places, shutting it down, however it's a fight. And we ain't stopping. And I respect the people that already been behind us, that love, you know, because I just feel like this on that, you know, I used to be out in the street, so going out in the street and fighting, that's nothing. This is the biggest fight I ever had in my life, and I'm not stopping.
So Michael Brown Sr.,
yes,
tell us what has been the effect on your family and neighbors and friends as a result of this.
Well, everyone is affected by this in the family, especially me. It took me a while, my wife and I talking, but it took me a while because I actually blame myself, you know, and I think that's where every father and every mother, they feel like it could have been something we could have done. I think, and I know I can speak for every family, is that when we had our child, our bond with them was to always protect. Never let nothing happen to them. And when they in a situation where when it's a situation where you can't protect them, it kind of takes you somewhere. You know, people say this is a fraternity. It's not no fraternity. You know, this just is something that, a situation with everyone that went through this, would nobody just understand. You know, I wouldn't call it fraternity. There's people that say this is a fraternity, you don't want to join this and that. I wouldn't call it no fraternity. It's just a sad, bad situation that needs to be changed. All love, family.
Mr. Brown, given a lot of thought to this thing, what do you think can change this kind of situation we're in and this system that, as you point out, affects so many people?
Well, for one, you know, it's no more rolling over and accepting things that's going on around in our communities. You know, it's time to just make a stand. Well, we have people that been making stands. It's certain situations I can't be in because they feel like we might incite riots. You know, some of the families, like Von Derrick Sr., he said that he won't stop, you know. It's just, you know, it's time to just stop rolling over, you know, and accepting what people are doing. These people been doing forever to us. And it's just sad that it took the assassination of my son to uprise all this, you know, and make this happen, you know. There's a lot of families that, like the other family said, there's other families out of state that's getting justice. We ain't getting nothing here. All because of the movement of me losing my boy. He shook this world up. And he's steady shaking it. Steady shaking it.
Mr. Brown, we want to thank you for your testimony and sharing with us, letting us know where we are and where you are and your family right now. And we want to let you know that what you have experienced, and there are many others who have experienced the same thing, that this has ignited a new movement around the globe. And we thank you for taking the stand that you've taken as a parent, but also as a member of this community and a citizen of this world. We want to thank you for your testimony.
And
I
again,
want to take a point of
I think that is all we have. Hopefully you guys got something out of this that will cause you to go back and engage in more of these conversations. And if you haven't joined the movement yet or thought to do anything, hopefully this has sparked something within you to move. And it doesn't even mean protesting. There's a lot of things you can do. We all play our parts. And hopefully these stories and seeing the heartache coming from these parents, and even yesterday watching the film of some of those in this room being victimized and terrorized, hopefully that touched you. 'Cause that's what this is about, is expanding the conversation and getting it to the point where we're not comfortable with this and it's not an everyday thing, but we really want to move together, move to end this. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this. Hopefully you guys got something out of it. And I don't know if our directors have anything else to say, Corey or David, but we are going to wrap it up. Thank you for coming, and if you are at home watching, thank you for tuning in. Thank you.
Let's come into the circle. Touch somebody next to you. Let's come in. Yeah. Thank you all for staying so long. Please touch someone. I'm going to ask for you to close your eyes just for 1 second, well, longer than a second. Breathe in and breathe out. When Fania Davis walked in, we were talking about healing. And she said, just telling our stories can be healing. As we stand here in community to hear, receive, and be support. A sister from the struggle in Chicago just left, and she was telling me about the trauma that victims of police violence, their families were going through because people didn't care anymore. So to be able to come together and share our stories is in part healing. Together, I'm going to read some words. They're over here. And I want you to respond with the word Ashe. And Ashe, Dr. Davis has taught me, is a word that means a divine healing that flows through us all. We ask the community for peace, restoration, and healing. Ashe. We ask the Creator to bring us justice in the honor of the fallen. Please give us space to love and rest one another in our differences. And I'm going to say it once and then we can say it all together. Or you can repeat after me. Give us this moment of reflection.
Give us this moment of reflection.
To seek a clean heart.
To seek a clean heart.
To allow the ties that bind us together.
To allow the ties that bind us together.
For justice, healing, and community.
For justice, healing, and community.
Ashe, ashe, ashe.
Ashe, ashe, ashe.
Let's move. Let's love on each other. Thank you all.
It is our duty to fight for our freedom. It is our duty to win. Love and support each other. We have nothing to lose but our change. It is our duty to fight for our freedom. It is our duty to fight for our freedom. It is our duty to win. It is our duty to win. We must love and support each other. We must love and support Our